A wounded Apache woman had lost hope until one cowboy chose kindness over fear, but what started as a rescue slowly became something neither of them expected. Will Ayanna trust again? Will Ethan confess what's in his heart before it's too late? Watch till the end, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more unforgettable stories. The sun burned across the endless dry plains of Arizona, turning the open land into waves of heat. Cowboy Ethan Carter guided his horse along a narrow trail he had ridden hundreds of times before. The afternoon felt unusually quiet until a thin line of smoke appeared beyond the distant hills. At first, he assumed another rancher had started a fire or travelers had made camp. But as he moved closer, the wind carried something unexpected, raised voices and the sound of panic. Ethan slowed his horse and climbed a rocky rise to get a better view. What he saw made him stop immediately. Below the hill, the remains of a small camp were scattered across the ground. Broken supplies, damaged shelters, and signs of struggle covered the area. Most people were gone, but near a group of large rocks, Ethan noticed movement. Hidden in the shadows was a young Apache woman. Her clothes were dusty, and she held one arm tightly, as if injured. The moment she saw Ethan, her expression turned sharp and defensive. She looked ready to run, despite her condition. Ethan understood enough about the frontier to know people learned caution for a reason. He stayed where he was and spoke calmly. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Ethan slowly removed his water canteen and placed it on the ground before stepping back. The woman watched carefully before reaching for it. She drank only a little, never taking her eyes off him. Ethan noticed exhaustion behind her guarded expression. He asked if she was hurt, but she remained silent. Her breathing became uneven when she tried to stand. Without pressure or questions, Ethan walked closer and offered support. After a long pause, she allowed him to help. He carefully lifted her onto his horse and turned back toward his ranch. The ride home passed mostly in silence. The woman sat quietly, alert to every movement and every sound. Ethan did not ask her name or where she came from. When they reached the ranch, he prepared a small room, brought clean water, and left food outside the door. Over the next few days, she barely spoke. She watched everything he did and seemed surprised that he expected nothing in return. Ethan treated her as a guest rather than someone who owed him. Slowly, she began staying outside longer and observing the peaceful routine of ranch life. One evening, after the heat faded and the sky turned deep orange, Ethan sat repairing a saddle outside the barn. The woman stepped onto the porch and stood quietly for a moment before speaking for the first time. "Why did you save me?" she asked in a low voice. Ethan looked at her and answered simply, "Because leaving you there wasn't an option." She studied him as if searching for another reason, but found none. For the first time since arriving, her expression softened. Neither of them realized that this moment would become the beginning of a story neither expected. Weeks passed quietly at the ranch, and life slowly settled into a rhythm neither Ethan nor Ayanna had expected. The mornings began before sunrise and ended under wide Arizona skies. At first, Ayanna only observed, staying distant and speaking little, but day by day she started helping without being asked. She repaired broken fence posts with steady hands, carried water, and learned the routines of caring for the horses. Ethan noticed small changes. The caution in her eyes became softer. The silence that once surrounded her no longer felt heavy. For the first time since arriving, she seemed to breathe freely. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan found himself looking forward to moments he never used to notice. He enjoyed hearing her footsteps outside the barn and seeing her stand at the fence watching the sunset. Sometimes she asked simple questions about ranch life, and sometimes she shared small stories from her childhood. Her quiet strength impressed him more than beauty ever could. Still, Ethan kept his distance emotionally. He reminded himself that she was healing and that one day she would leave to build her own future. He told himself not to mistake gratitude for something deeper. Iyanna noticed more than Ethan realized. She saw how he never demanded explanations about her past and never treated her kindness like something to be repaid. One afternoon, while repairing a gate together, she laughed. Unexpectedly, after Ethan made a clumsy joke, the sound surprised both of them. She stopped and smiled as if she had forgotten she could do that. Ethan smiled back, but looked away quickly. That evening, she stayed outside longer than usual, sitting on the porch while the sky changed colors. Neither spoke much, but the silence between them no longer felt uncomfortable. One evening, as the sun painted the horizon in shades of orange and gold, Iyanna walked toward Ethan while he finished feeding the horses. She stood beside him quietly before saying, "Before you found me, I thought no one would ever care what happened to me." Ethan lowered his eyes for a moment and answered softly, "You deserved better than that." She looked at him carefully, as if deciding something important. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small bracelet made from Apache beadwork. Holding it out, she said, "In my people's way, this means I trust you." Ethan took the bracelet slowly and looked at the careful pattern woven into it. It was simple but clearly made with time and meaning. He thanked her, but the words felt too small for the moment. As she walked back toward the house, Ethan remained standing in the fading light. He thought about the empty ranch before she arrived and how different every day had become. He had convinced himself this was temporary and that she would leave eventually. But deep inside, he understood something he could no longer ignore. He had saved her life. Somewhere between quiet mornings and endless sunsets, he had given away his heart.